So that congregation, that building wasn't there, but that congregation was there when Washington and Jefferson and Adams were meeting in there. There was a Jewish congregation this close to the founding of our nation. One of the things that Washington did is those windows right there, he made sure they were sealed and not opened at all in all of their arguments and things that were going on, because of he didn't want people in the street. People were trying to hear what was happening, see what was happening. Franklin called a recess and said, "Have we forgotten God so soon in this nation?" And he called for a recess and prayer. Went down the street to Christ Church down here and met for prayer. And since that time, we've always opened every session of Congress in prayer. And it's because of Franklin. Franklin was an old man at that time.
They also called for a fast.
They called for a fast as well. And it all happened in that room right there. So proclaim liberty throughout all the land. The Jewish American ties, guys, go all the way back to our very founding. One of the things that they didn't say in there, and you can understand why, because they're federal employees, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Taxation without representation was grievance number 17. It wasn't even in the top 10. It was number 17. Tyranny against the church and religion, like what we're seeing today with the Catholic Church, those were number 1, 2, 3, freedom of speech. All of those things were the top things that were the grievances of that day. They had put in there, Jefferson put it in there, he mentioned it, to abolish slavery right then from the get-go, because Americans, for the most part, didn't want it. King George III had vetoed that as the king, saying you can't do that, you're a part of Great Britain. So they got it all signed, they sealed the doors so nobody could come out. Franklin walks out on the streets and he says, the lady asked him, what kind of a government do we have, Mr. Franklin? He says, a republic, if you can keep it. And that is the key phrase in it. Franklin made a comment that you couldn't walk through the streets of Philadelphia without hearing songs and hymns being sung and prayers going forward. This city was on fire.
We should start
And so there's a statue of Haim Solomon up here. Haim Solomon financed the army in Valley Forge. So God and country are a very big part. John Adams said that he wished the Jewish people had a homeland in Judea, in Jerusalem, not in America, because there were some wanting them to have a homeland here. And he said no, it's got to be in Jerusalem. That's the only place that it can be. So I think that it was important, instead of sitting at the airport, for us to come see this and then go see the fulfillment of the dream that the second president of the United States had, John Adams, for a homeland for the Jewish people again in Israel. And we realized that a congregation met right there. So
is the building still there?
The building is not there. They have a new building there now, but Haim Solomon statue's there. It's all right there. So okay.
But besides that, a couple of things about what we see in front of us, and then I'll tell you about the hill that we are standing on. Guys, let's do a half a group for the only hill all around us. We are now in Jaffa, but we are looking at Tel Aviv. All the skyscrapers, or 99% of them, are from the last 10-15 years. Okay? You didn't have it really, except one that was built in 77. Until 15 years ago, you didn't have any of them. Now, also your hotel is pretty close. It's right here, yes. It's actually, it's written over in down panorama, but it's written like the fourth. No, the high one's like the fourth. But listen, guys, everything that you see around you, until 1909, there was nothing there. It was just desert, just sand. Everybody can hear me, by the way. Also, when I'm talking like that.
No.
Skip.
I have pretty loud voice, but
doesn't go
it
backwards.
can be louder if you want.
All right.
There was nothing there. Now, over here, everything were oranges. Maybe you heard about the brand Jaffa. Jaffa oranges. It's very famous also in Europe, but also in the US. Many people heard about it. Today, actually, when you're buying unfortunately, a brand Jaffa. It's not coming from Israel anymore. It's coming from Spain. They bought it, the name, a couple of years ago. But everything over here, where again you see condos today, a private residence, everything were just orange fields. But that's it. There was one road that left from Jaffa to Jerusalem. Here there was nothing. Here there was nothing. Now I told you that Jaffa is a very ancient city. 4,000 years ago. It was established around 4,000 years ago. The name Jaffa comes from one of the sons of Noah. That's by the tradition. But it's very, very old city. I told you about Jonah and the whale. Just for the ones that don't know what I'm talking about. In the book of Jonah, God spoke to Jonah. He wanted to send him to the city of Nineveh to talk to the people there, to try to repent them. But Jonah didn't want. He was afraid of them. So he thought that he can run away. So he came to the port over here. He took a boat, and then in some point a storm started. Now he knew that it was his fault, and he jumped into the water. And then the storm stopped. So the people helped him come back, and then he told them again, listen, the storm is because of me. So they thought that he's crazy. But then the storm came again, so he jumped again, and then they understood also he did it again, and the third time they understood that he had something about what he says, so they got rid of him over there, and they carry on in their own path. Then the big fish ate him for 3 days. There is something very, very symbolic about the 3 days that he was in the stomach of in the stomach of the big fish, like Jesus 3 days after he was crucified and then resurrected.
Something like
but that's another issue. Then he was vomited again in the port over here. And then again he understood what he was supposed to know from the begin with, that you can't really run away from God. God can reach you anywhere in the world, or even beyond it probably. And then he did what he was supposed to do, and actually succeeded. The part for the Christianity, why? Actually, for me, Jaffa is a very, very important point for the Christianity, because for me it's like the cross point, the crossroad between the Judaism and the Christianity of today, more or less. About that we'll talk when we'll walk near the house of Simon the Tanner. But this hill, guys, you see that it's an open hill. I told you it's the highest point of all this region. And again, I know that I'm jumping between different things because we don't have too much time here, and but I'll go back to everything. Really, I promise you, in the bus I'll go with the stories about the old history and new history and wars and this and that. Don't worry, and I'll connect the dots for you. But in the Arab rebellion between the years 1936-1939, it was the Arab rebellion that they did it against the British. The British controlled the Holy Land back then. And the Arabs really didn't like the fact that the British letting the Jewish people coming to Israel, coming to the Holy Land. So they made a big rebellion. One of the things that they did was actually closing down the port that we'll go to see in a couple of minutes. So the Jews, they thought, okay, we have a big problem that the port doesn't work, so what can we do? Let's open a new port. So they opened the port of Tel Aviv, and then the port of Jaffa. No one cared, even when the Arabs opened it again, no one cared about it because we had a new port of Tel Aviv. But one of the things that the British did was destroying all the center of the city. This was actually the center of the city for centuries. This hill, it's the best point of the city. This was the center of the city. They bombed all this hill from the air. Since then, it's open just like you see it right now. Now, a couple of years ago, actually more than a couple of years ago, in the 60s and 70s, we digged over here on this hill, and we found different things from different periods in the history, from the Canaanite period, the Egyptian time, different periods of time. We'll go near it really fast in a minute. I want to show you one thing over there. But this is also an archaeological hill. Anyone knows what is an archaeological hill means? Okay, we'll get to it, but not right now. But we are sitting now on archaeological hill. I'll remind you about that when we'll talk about it. Basically, it's levels over levels over levels from different periods in the history. Now, when you have houses, you can throw the people out to dig underneath. But because this place was destroyed, so we could dig over here, and we found here different things. They have actually a very big museum because of things that we just found in this hill over here. Okay? I'll finish it up before we'll get going with two things. First of all, take a look at the beautiful coastline, the beach of Tel Aviv. We have here 9 miles of a beach. For me, it's the most beautiful beach in the world that you have inside the city. I'm not saying if you go to Thailand for an island, a deserted island or something, maybe you'll find a nicer one. But as a beach that is inside the city, it's an amazing one. Your hotel, again, it's sitting on the promenades. You'll be able to go in the evenings if you have the strength to see, to walk. By the way, guys, Israel is very, very safe. Okay? I don't know, I didn't ask you exactly where are you guys from. I know they're from California, but someone said San Diego. I don't know if everybody is from. Everybody are from that area. Okay. Israel is very safe. You have no problem walking if it's on the promenade. If it's really 99% of the places, you have no problem. Also for women, also for in the nighttime. Of course, you won't take $10,000 in your hand and do something like that, but there is no problem whatsoever for anyone. Okay, you need to know that. Passports, I told you to live in the hotel, usually, not because someone will rob you. Actually, the chance that someone will rob you in the middle of the day or in the middle of the night are zero. Okay? So you just won't lose it by yourself. Okay? So leave it just in the hotel. Okay, and the second thing, guys, take a look at the gate or statue over here. Come, follow me. None of those happen here.
Come here. Now you can't really see it too much, but you have in one side the conquer of Jericho. Here is the binding of Isaac, and up there you have the. Sorry, this is the binding of Isaac, and this is the dream of Jacob. They're going up and down in the ladder. Hard to see all those things. You can see it also from the other side. I'm taking them also to Wasit Haffa. Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to do it here, or we can do it near the church, or where I'll stop also near the house of Simon the Tanner. It is from the Byzantine period. Back then they used to build everything with mud. They made like breaks from mud in the evening time until the morning it got dry, and then they built from it. But the first, let's say, half a meter, they made sure to build it always from stone, because if you have flash floods or those kinds of problems, above it they build everything from mud. But Jaffa is mentioned in one of the first battles in the history that we know that are written outside the Bible. Okay? 3,600 years ago, came to the Holy Land one of the pharaohs by the name of Thutmose III. He came for a quest he passed through different places, and he wrote it on a stone in Egypt. And he actually wrote about the different parts of his fighting. He came to Jaffa, he came to Megiddo, that will go there in the next couple of days, and he passed in a couple of places. Here he had something really, really fascinating. He tried to conquer the city, but he couldn't. In some point he thought actually giving up and then to continue. And then his general had a great idea. He said, listen,
let's make for ourselves like baskets from hay, and leave them over here, and leave inside the baskets a lot of fruits, like offer for the city. But underneath those fruits, let's put on each one of the baskets one soldier. And when they'll see that everybody are gone, they'll take those baskets into the city, and then the soldiers will be able to conquer the city. It was a great idea, and it actually worked. Sounds familiar to you?
Yes.
The Trojan horse, exactly. This was something like 1,000 years before Troy. Okay, and it's written on the rock in Egypt. And this gate, although that of course it's not a real one, it's dedicated to the Egyptian period, because from over here was the entrance to the city back then. The wall went around here, but actually from the wall only a little bit of the beginning of the gate exists, but you can't even see that some parts they took to the museum. From France in the beginning, but through Egypt into the land of Israel, through Ramle, conquered Jaffa. It was also very hard for him to conquer Jaffa, and when he actually conquered the city, there were stories about the blood of the people here, like he slaughtered everybody here, decided the blood of the people went down to the sea and make everything red. It became such a terrible situation that even his own people, his own troops got sick, and he left some of them here because his main goal was actually to conquer Akko. We're stopping in Akko? I don't remember. Never mind. A very important city back then in the north of Israel, a little bit north of Haifa. And when he came back here after he couldn't conquer Akko, then we have actually two stories, two versions of the same story. One version says that he told his doctor to kill all the wounded, it's not wounded, all the sick people here, and then he ran away back to Egypt. The other version and left them to die. But anyway, on the way out from the land of Israel, again, and he was actually sorry that he didn't. But another issue, the church of it is the Saint Peter's church. Saint Peter visited in Jaffa. Now we're going to a very important house. By the tradition, it's a very important house, and we'll talk about the Christianity stories about Jaffa. So please follow me.
Theology. And Pastor Greg and I love to kind of bring another component in, and I hope you will as well, Ophir, the spiritual component of what happened in some of these places. How many of you remember what happened here with the mighty move of healing? May have been where we're standing in Acts chapter 9, which we'll read you quickly the story of at Jaffa, Yaffo, where we are. There was a certain disciple named Tabitha. Remember her, which is translated Dorcas? This woman was full of good works and charitable deeds, which she did. But it happened in those days that she became sick and died. When they had washed her, hadn't buried her, they had just prepared her, okay? They laid her in an upper room. Could have been in any of these. And since Lydda was near Joppa, which is where we came in through the airport, right? Lod is Lydda. The disciples had heard that Shimon Keph, or Peter, was there. They sent two men to him, imploring him not to delay in coming to them. Then Peter arose and went with them, and when he had come, they brought him to the upper room. And then all the widows stood by weeping, showing the tunics and garments. She was a seamstress, right? Which Dorcas had made while she was with them. But Peter put them all out. He had to get alone with God. He had to know it was God's will for this woman to be resurrected. Knelt down and prayed, and turning to the body, he said, "Tabitha, arise." And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. Then he gave her his hand and lifted her up. And when he had called the saints and widows, he presented her alive. And it became known throughout Joppa, and many believed on the Lord. And so it was that he stayed many days in Joppa with Simon the tanner, and Pastor Greg's going to talk about that particular house and what happened there. But I felt that as we opened up this tour on a spiritual level, that God did a mighty work of healing here. I believe he wants to do a mighty work of physical healing with us. Many of us are hurting right now from that long flight. We're going to be immersed tomorrow, and so get your spirit prepared for what took place here. Arise. He said it with authority. He had to get God's will. He knew it was God's will to heal, and we're standing on that spot where that took place. And I thought that was just incredible as we opened up, that this has mighty spiritual significance, along with Napoleon coming, as we learned, and so on. So,
now guys, I'm not going right now to read from the Bible to you, but I'll just tell you the stories in my words. After that part, St. Peter became, let's say, the most important person in the city, right? Everybody heard that he resurrected the woman who died for a couple of days. So he went to sleep in the house of Simon the Tanner. By the tradition, this is the house down there. And first of all, he went to sleep on the roof. Why is that? Back then, there were no air cons, believe it or not. And Jaffa, we are now in the winter time. In the summer time, it's hot here like you can't imagine, and it's humid. It's not easy. And usually, the most important people, the guest, or the most important people that came to the house went to sleep on the roof, because usually the roof had or vines on it. There was some kind of shadow on it, and there was a great breeze from the sea. The sea is just behind that. Okay, we are something like 10-15 yards from the sea. So he had a trance, or in easy words, he went to sleep. But he went to sleep probably very, very hungry, because it's not only that he dreamt about food, he dreamt about forbidden food. Now guys, you know what kosher means? Kosher, unkosher, okay. So he dreamt about food that wasn't kosher. So he said, listen, I cannot eat those things, I'm Jewish, what is this? But then the voice told him from heaven, who are you to decide what you can eat, what you cannot eat? Everything that I made up here in heaven, you people down there on earth can eat. Now, this is a very, very important crossroads, because until that point, the new Jews or Christianity, you can call it the way that you want, it was just another group in the Judaism. Also today in the Judaism there are different groups, also back then there were different groups. But from the point that they started eating unkosher food, so it went to another direction. The Judaism continued in the same direction, and the Christianity took another, or it depends how you look at it. Maybe the Christianity continued and the Judaism took it to another one, but this is another argument. But anyway, they went to different paths. And again, by tradition, this is the house that it took place in. I don't know if it's the exact the real house, but anyway, it's around here, around us.
So I won't read this, but I'll touch on one thing, what this means to us. There's a moment. So what it means to us is this, because in our group we have, we got Christians and Jews together as brothers in this. Now, I think it's significant that what he just told you happened with Simon the Tanner happened in this city. I think it's significant. The reason why is because God was going to use a guy by the name of Jonah to go preach to Gentiles, to save the Gentiles, and Jonah didn't want to do it. Because he didn't want to be unclean with the Gentiles, because he knew God's mercy. If I go speak to the Gentiles, you're going to save the city, and nothing's going to happen. Now here you have the same thing happening with Peter, who he's going to send to a Gentile, an Italian guy named Cornelius, who happens to be up the coast. I don't know how far is Caesarea?
50 kilometers, like 30 miles.
So it's 30 miles up the coast. This guy's been praying, and he has a vision, and he has a vision. Here's the funny thing: Philip happened to be at that place, but God didn't send him. He sent Peter from here, so he had to travel all the way there. Now, he said, I've never touched anything unclean. I've never eaten anything unclean. All the while, staying and living at a tanner's house, which makes you unclean. So the hypocrisy in the religion that he's expressing to God, saying, I'm not unclean, yet you're staying in a place that's unclean. And so God, I think, was really just trying to get his attention and say, quit thinking you're holier than thou and you're better than this. And so at that point, he sends him out, and he goes to Cornelius, and this is when the Gentile first receives what we know as the Holy Spirit. And Caesarea, how do you say it? I say Caesarea.
Caesarea, yeah.
Caesarea, which we'll visit tomorrow, right? So you'll see that tomorrow. Now, I get asked this question all the time. I got asked this question by a Jewish lady on the plane. Why do you support the Jews as a Gentile? Why do you support Israel? And it goes back to this right here. Cornelius has been praying, and the angel said to him, you're giving to the Jewish people, and your prayers have gone up to heaven as an alms. What he had done is he had fulfilled Genesis 12:3. I will bless those that bless you. I will curse him that curses you, and in you all the nations of the earth will be blessed. When we get to Capernaum, we'll see another place. I'll tell you another story there. Every time the Gentiles have blessed the Jewish people like they were commanded to do, God has moved. So it happened right here, Simon the Tanner, and Caesarea, what you'll see tomorrow. So don't think you're holier than thou, that you can't go speak to anybody that he would tell you to go to. It really had less to do with the food and more to do with the attitude. All right? Same attitude as Jonah, same attitude Peter. That's all.
Okay. Okay, now let's go down, please.
In the entrance to the port. Until today, it's standing like that. You know, in the year 1865, Mark Twain came to the Holy Land, and he came to this port, and he wrote how terrible this country is, because when he came to he was supposed to come to the port, the ship stopped something like 200 meters from the shore, and they moved everything to smaller boats, like this one, and half of his luggage threw into the water, and like, he was so disappointed and everything. But it was really problematic. When we'll visit Caesarea tomorrow, you'll see over there King Herod, that we'll talk about him a lot in the next couple of days. He built there a port that was enough for 200 large ships. Wow. But guys, this is the port that King Solomon brought the wood for the first temple. This is the port of Jonah that we spoke about. This is the port for thousands of years. It was the main entrance and exit to everywhere in Europe. Also the mayor and the Frankenstein was passing through here. Guys, you'll see all the time in Israel many choppers, many planes. There is also in Tel Aviv a small airport, so many planes going in and out. Small ones, it's not it's international, but usually small planes are coming in and out all the time. Nothing too big. Now in the last 2 years they wanted to start developing this port to build here, to make from it like the Tel Aviv port. The Tel Aviv port in the last 10, 12 years is a great place for shopping and restaurants and going out. It's the main scene of Tel Aviv with everything of clubs and bars and all that. They built this funny structure. I never understood. I never decided if it's beautiful or ugly. But this is what they built there, straight up.
But it's still cool.
It depends how you look.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely doesn't work so much with the area. Exactly. But really, Jaffa, in the last 10-15 years, a lot of people understood that actually it's sitting just near Jaffa. It's sitting just near Tel Aviv, and it's sitting on the beach. Now, why I'm saying that the real estate in Tel Aviv is very, very high. Tel Aviv and Jerusalem probably it's the highest in Israel. Many people started buying a lot of property over here. Many people started rebuilding houses over here. Like you can see like that, but everywhere in Jaffa. The prices in Israel, in Jaffa, sorry, went up to the roof. It's crazy. Today in some points it's even more expensive than in Tel Aviv. Because just like that, you see, people everywhere, it's people's houses and it's just on the water. It's really, really great.
Okay, guys?